Welcome to the Healing Heart Podcast, where all healing is always a matter of the heart. I'm your host, Dawna Campbell, also known as the Mind Whisperer, interviewing guest experts on all matters of healing. And welcome to the Healing Heart Podcast. I'm Dawna Campbell, and I am so thrilled for my next guest here today. Her name is Beale, and she believes that homeopathy is the coolest medicine on the planet. And I couldn't agree any more than that. She became interested in homeopathy over 20 years ago when her 9-month-old son had repeated ear infections with no relief after many, many antibiotics. And I'm going to tell you that's the truth as a mom going through that. So one trip to a homeopath and the infections were resolved. This amazingly curious event got her interested in learning more, and she began reading about homeopathy. So along with the expert guidance of a qualified homeopath, she treated her family and eventually studied to become a nationally certified classic homeopath. She currently practices in Northampton, Massachusetts, and offers virtual appointments over Zoom. So welcome here to the show, Abby.
Thanks, Dawna, for having me. Really, I'm glad to be here.
So you started off talking about how your son had repeated ear infections and some of the things that you did to resolve it, which got you onto your path of homeopathy. So with that, what are some of the other things that you have seen with your studies that homeopathy can be utilized for? And that's part of the question. The other part of the question is not all of our listeners know what it is. So give us a short description of homeopathy.
Okay. So first, when you said what can homeopathy be used for? I'm like, there's a massive list of things. Pretty much if a person has a symptom, chances are pretty strong that homeopathy has something that could possibly help it. So because homeopathy works with symptoms, it's individualized in that, if I had 5 people who come to me and say, oh, I have headaches, it's not like, okay, here, take an ibuprofen. It's not just take one thing. It's more of, well, let's understand how each one of you experience your headaches. Let's understand a little more of when did they start? Was there an emotional or a mental start to them? Sometimes it's a grief, sometimes it's a disappointment, sometimes it's they got hit in the head. You don't know what caused it, right? And then each one of them has different modalities, meaning, oh, when I lay down, it hurts my head more, so I have to sit up, or I go for a run and that seems to help when I have a headache, or I put cold on my head because that feels better than warm. And so everybody has these little pieces of their life's puzzle when they have dis-ease, when their body's uncomfortable. And once we decide and we get all that information, we then can put together what would be appropriate for them. So what is homeopathy? That's a big, big concept. Right. So I spend a lot of my time actually educating because people don't know what homeopathy is, and I want them to know. So my website is pretty much basically, here's what you need to know. I put other podcast interviews. I put webinars on there for free. I have just an informational thing. I just want people to know. But basically what it is not chemical medicine. It's not a pharmaceutical. It is energy medicine, and energy medicine that takes a material substance. And I'll use an example, an easy one, like coffee. We have a remedy in our repertoire called Coffea cruda, and its base is coffee. Now, a lot of people drink coffee. A lot of people have caffeine. And if you have too much of it, what can happen is you might not be able to sleep. You might have heart palpitations. You'll be restless. You might have diarrhea. You might be dizzy. I mean, lots of different things. And those kinds of symptoms come up for people that don't even drink coffee. But if those symptoms or any combination of those symptoms come up in someone, we can give them this energetic version of coffee in a homeopathic remedy. So why is it energetic? So I use this analogy a lot to try to explain it. Please imagine that sitting in front of me or you are 30 cups of water that are filled 99%. Okay, you got that in your mind? Now we're going to take a dropper and we're going to take this cup of coffee I have in my hand, and I'm going to take one drop from that coffee and put it into the first cup. That fills the cup. Now what we're going to do is not just stir it, but we're going to do the thing that makes it homeopathic, which is to success it vigorously, which means pound it really, really hard. Like if you had a bottle and it was gone on a book, I think in the olden days it was on a Bible, I don't know, whatever, but you really want to activate the material inside of that cup. So you would cover the cup and then you would shake it vigorously 10 times. And then what's resulting in that water is this energy of coffee in a 1C or 1 centesimal potency. And then you take a drop of that 1C glass and you put it to the next glass and you do the same thing. You shake it 10 times and now it's a 2C potency. 1 drop of that goes into the next one, shake it 10 times, that's a 3C potency. And what you find in the stores, and you can get these on Amazon, you can get at Whole Foods, you can go Vitamin Shop, I don't know what health food store you have near you, you'll probably find 6C, 12C, and 30C. That's what you can get over the counter. So think of these little white pellets, which is the delivery system, and this water that was maybe 30C dropped on them. That's energy medicine. There's no substance of coffee left in it, but it's the energy of the coffee. Mm-hmm. So it's important that people understand that remedies, you are not taking any kind of a poison substance. Sometimes you look up a remedy and you go, oh, that's a poison. Like, yeah, but when it's made homeopathically, it's not at all. And so it's a very, very cool way to stimulate the body to heal itself without any problems with the liver. It doesn't process through the liver. There aren't side effects like pharmaceuticals might have. They have effects, but not side effects.
Right.
So I hope I made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You did, because what we're doing is we're taking the energy of a substance, and by the time it gets down through the processing to the dilution level, when you take it, the substance isn't in there, but the energy imprints is there, and that is what initiates the healing inside.
Yay, I got it. You got it.
You got it. Yes.
Yes.
So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes. So with that, how does the body know to absorb the energy for healing if you're not taking the pill or the pharmaceutical with that? How does it know to convert that energy?
So each remedy has what is called approving. Every remedy that we have in existence for remedies. And what approving basically is a remedy like the Café Cruda made in a 30C is given to healthy participants whose symptoms, whoever they are, what their preferences are, have all been recorded. And they're given the substance without knowing what it is. They don't know what it is. It could be a plant, it could be a mineral, it could be an animal, it could be a food substance, whatever. And they take it and they are, every day they report to a supervisor, they tell their supervisor what are they feeling, what are they thinking. And so what has happened is we have this now list of symptoms that when you take Café Cruda, when you're healthy, that they generate and make you not well. So if those symptoms, when you're not well, you're taking the remedy, you're going to get better. So every remedy has this list of symptoms. That's why we need to know where you're at with that headache. If you have a headache, like specifically what makes it better, what makes it worse, and when does it come on, and all that stuff. So it's not just, how do you know which one? You have to know what the issues are and then what remedy would match it best.
Wow. So with that whole process, is there a, knowing what all the different symptoms are, you have to do some sort of intake or way to understand what the client is going through. What does that process look like so you can match the right remedy to them?
Yes. So working with a homeopath is very different than working with a medical doctor in that, number one, sadly, we do not take insurance, but I shouldn't say sadly. It just means that people don't come to us as freely because it's not covered by insurance. I wish they did. But I spend about 2 hours with somebody on their first appointment. They fill out some paperwork and then just, what can I help you with? And then we kind of go into everything from your food likes and preferences and allergies and sleep patterns and sleep position and, your relationships and any traumas. I mean, we go through like a lot. And then I take all those pieces of that person's puzzle based on what it is that they need help with and their support. And I study it, and then I put together what I think would be the best first remedy to start with. So that's what constitutional remedies do. That's kind of one remedy for the whole person. But right now, when people are sick, like with the flu, for instance, we don't go through all of that. Instead, I just want to get the modalities. Since you've been sick, what's different? Do you have an appetite? Do you not have an appetite? Are you more thirsty? Is your mouth dry? I mean, I get all of those things and in a much shorter time, like a half an hour, 20 minutes to a half hour. And then I look at differential of what remedies, and then I'll give you a name of a remedy and you take it, get it and take it. So it's a different thing when it's an acute issue versus constitutional. Right. A lot of people, though, I just want you to know, Dawna, it's really great that when they, if they're really interested, they can get a book on homeopathy. They could start reading about it. They can get the kind that say, okay, I have a cold. It has this kind of cold. And so I'm going to try this remedy because this one matches me the most. So you can play with it, because with homeopathy, if you take a remedy that's not the right one, a bad one, if it's not the right one, it's just not going to work. It's not going to resonate, especially as long as you stick with 6, 12, or 30C, which is sold in the store. So people can learn themselves. Lots of moms do it. They treat their kids at home. They might have study groups. Lots of people do it at home without the assistance of a homeopath for acutes.
So when people come to you and you work with your clients, do you see any particular patterns or commonalities that people show up with for symptoms?
Yes, some. I mean, everyone is unique and everyone's past is different. So it depends on a lot of things. But now I have to say there's just so many people that are pharmaceuticalized. And I'm saying that just because so many people are taking a lot of chemicals into their bodies. And it could even be in their food source. Could be even 5G around them. There's just so many different things. But a lot of antibiotics, prednisone, cortisone, birth control, vaccines, all this kind of stuff, which makes it really a challenge to try to get the body to heal itself because it has been so imprinted by all of these pharmaceuticals. So what I see with people a lot of times are just the longer term effects of too many of something. Like someone who has irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease, maybe they had a lot of antibiotics as a kid, and the antibiotics could have caused the dysbiosis in the stomach, which is causing those issues, plus a mental emotional thing. And so so I do see a lot of side effects from the pharmaceuticals. But mostly now, not mostly, a lot of what I see is anxiety and I see depression more than I did before COVID, I will say. It's definitely there. And teenagers, definitely, kids, because they really don't have the coping skills at all. And many adults as well. So those are like some of the main things, but I see so many different things. So,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we are here talking with Abby Beale, and she is a certified classic homeopath. And we are getting ready here to take our quick sponsor break. And when we return, we're going to ask a few more questions because, I have more. Well, I always want to know. I'm always learning. So hang on and we'll be right back in just a few moments. Get what you always wanted. Abundant life is possible. Transform your lifestyle in just weeks with the most innovative system developed for heart-centered business professionals who seek change today. You are one step away from creating infinite prosperity, happiness, and love. Grab your bonus link now that's in the show notes. Welcome back to the Healing Heart Podcast. And our guest today is Abby Beale. She is a certified classic homeopath. And we've been talking about how homeopath works, how it transitions into energy and into the body for healing. And so, Abby, I do want to ask one of the questions that I have, because I believe that all healing is a matter of the heart. With the people that you have worked with, what was some of the greatest healing transformations that you have seen as far as results with homeopathy?
Oh, there's a lot.
All right, top 3.
Yeah. I'm just like something with healing heart. I'm thinking about like heart stuff. So it's pretty well known, I think, that when a spouse dies and there was love in that relationship, that the other spouse has a pretty good chance of having some heart problems over the next, 6 months or so. And in effect, they die from a broken heart, literally.
Right.
And so by giving a remedy, it's called Ignatia. Ignatia amara, it's made from a plant. And when that's given to someone, they are able to, they're still sad, but they can move forward and most of the time avoid any kind of heart issues, physical heart issues that come from dealing with a really serious grief. And so things like that are very powerful. There's other times where people will take a remedy who, I don't want to be totally gross here, but had some excessive bleeding in a certain part of their body. And by giving a right remedy, that stopped, which prevented them from having surgery, which prevented them from having major pharmaceuticals. I mean, there's a lot of things that homeopathy can do, provided the person is good at telling their story and that I'm good at finding the right match. So what people find is that homeopathy is very different than the medical community. And we have different tools and abilities than the medical community has. Like, for example, in my own personal world, I used to suffer from yeast infections, tons of yeast infections when I was younger. If I looked at sugar, if I was in the sun, if I had some red wine, any of that stuff, immediately I would get a yeast infection, or wearing a bathing suit too long would get me a yeast infection. And so once I came upon homeopathy over a short period of time, I noticed that, wow, I'm not getting yeast infections anymore. And so it isn't just a cream that made it feel better, but the remedies healed the body from that tendency. And so that's what is different for sure about homeopathy, is that it makes things that were normally very troublesome over a short period of time pretty much non-existent or not troublesome. Like allergies, people have serious allergies that each season that they go through becomes less intense, less frequent, and less long lasting. And then eventually it's like, oh yeah, I had allergies. I forgot I had allergies. Meanwhile, they were so miserable, when they came. So it really helps to almost fix the problem versus cover it up, which I think happens a lot with other medicine.
So really, with the whole pathway of homeopathy, you're going back to an original source, to the energy imprint, to get the most healing naturally, which really restores all of the body's symptoms, meridians, all of the different energy pathways, because you're restoring back to wholeness. And as we're talking about this, it reminds me of, the Schumann resonance, the natural wave frequencies of the earth. And really what we're doing with this type of healing is going back to the natural wave frequency to get the optimal results for everybody.
Correct. And so one thing that you may see, and people go looking online for homeopathy, they call it placebo. And I have to hit that right on the mark, because I've treated infants and I've treated animals, and I can tell you they don't know what they're taking and they get better. And so, the placebo effect, sure, it works with pharmaceuticals too. You tell someone, hey, this is going to fix you. It may not be the right thing, but they do get fixed. Fine. With homeopathy, I've had people that say, this stuff doesn't work. I'm going to take it, but it doesn't work. And then they come back and like, yeah, it worked. My hemorrhoids are gone. I'm good. It's like, good. That's all I care. You don't have to believe in this stuff. It's the energy,
right,
of that person. So,
right.
So it's not, I don't see ever that it's placebo. And I'm really upset when I see that they think that it's just placebo. Everything is placebo, by the way. Everything has a 33% chance of it being placebo. But homeopathy is not purely placebo. It has an effect.
And I also think about people who do use pharmaceuticals, because it's my understanding through medicinal herbalism that with the pharmaceuticals, they took the most important part or the most active ingredient of a plant or product, and then took everything else out of it, and then learned to synthetically replicate that in a lab. But because you didn't use the entire plant as you would in herbalism, you had all kinds of side effects. But what we're doing here is we're taking it one step further, going, now we just have the essence to do the healing, and then the person recovers, has the healing, experiences something different because a new vibrational frequency went through them for that. But I'm also going to guess there's not really any side effects of even using anything in it because you're going back to a pure divine essence substance.
Correct. And as long as the homeopathic remedy is still in the 6, 12, or 30 C potency, you're fine. In my practice, I use 200 C, which is a lot higher, 1M, 1000 C, 10M, and 50M at times when needed. And so those have to be handled with kid gloves, people that know what they're doing. So as long as they stay in that realm of 6, 12, and 30, they should be fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do people get in touch with you to experience this for all of their health needs?
You're so sweet. So what I ask is that people schedule a 15-minute call from my website, which is homeopathyhealings.com. And just schedule 15 minutes. It's a free time just to say, okay, what are your issues? Is this something I really think that I can work with? Or is there a colleague of mine that might do better with you than I would? And to also answer your questions about the treatment and how it all works. So a free 15-minute call is really what I look for people to do on homeopathyhealings.com.
All right. That is amazing. And for all of our listeners out there, definitely go to her website, do the free 15-minute consultation. There's no risk, but tons of reward in that.
Yeah.
I do have to say. And all of that information will, of course, be in our show notes. And Abby, thank you so much for being here with us today on the Healing Heart podcast.
So my pleasure. Thanks so much, Dawna.
Thank you. And for everybody else, just go create a beautiful day.